Sal, I don't know if you're a big video game guy, but I have to tell you what's going on in New York City. You've been telling us how the Eric Adams administration is basically a crime syndicate. So for today, we're going to talk about this. It's almost like an auto theft scheme, but there's so much going on with the NYPD and Eric Adams. How you doing, Sal?
It's great to be back, Jason. It's what can I say? When it comes to this particular subject of New York City or NYPD and Eric Adams in general, every day you learn of something new. There's something that we didn't know about or you might have known about that becomes a official thing or an allegation or some investigation. And it's sad because in the end, who's responsible? The New York City taxpayer. And it's a taxpayer expense or whatever kind of criminality is going on here. But if it's not one thing, it's another. Whether it's the allegations we're hearing with these fraternal organizations, whether it's the allegations of the federal use of money for overtime scheme, whether it's what do we have now? Take the cars that they were taking home and taking executives took home and then switched around, and it's a mess, Jason. It's every day it's something else. Something else. It's incredible. You really have a first-class crime syndicate in New York City running the entire city.
Now, I just heard little whispers about what's going on with this car leasing scheme, but I have to tell you something. I noticed right around the time that Eric Adams first came in, there was a huge proliferation of new, mostly Mustang Mach-E, the electric Ford Mustang, a lot of black kind of undercover looking city cars that were just parked around City Hall. And it was just like, what's going on with all these New York City fancy black Mustangs?
Well, now the fancy cars belong to that program, the Crowlow program, and that vehicle is not supposed to be used for the stuff that you heard about, which I reported on. That one of Chief Shell, which now is a chief of department, which he shouldn't even be that, but at the time was a chief of patrol, one of his main cronies, who's a stooge in Brooklyn South investigations. And investigations are when you get allegations put on you, if it doesn't go to internal affairs, it'll be investigations. And each borough has one: Brooklyn South, Brooklyn North, Queens South, Staten Island. This crony of his, Mark Broussel, was a CO of Brooklyn South investigations, where they were catching and killing investigations on this CRT team. So this guy had a Category 1 car. He lent his Category 1 car to his, lieutenant. Then that lieutenant took the car. I believe I reported on it on my own X that he used the Crowlow car on top of it. That's what the CO was using, I believe. All of this, nobody wanted to make mention of it because why? We know who is the underling to John Shell. So it never ends. The whole aspect of
who is that? Who is the underling to John Shell? A lot of people don't know the stuff that you know. Your knowledge of the structure and the corruption within the NYPD is huge. But first of all, what is Crowlow? What is it supposed to be for? And who are all these underlings? They're making money from doing something with cars that they're not supposed to.
Yeah, you were on the right track with the article, because the article actually states what the Crowlow is. My ex will show you the post about what they didn't feature, which one of these people was the inspector. So it's a two-pronged thing. But the program is like an auto leasing company, and we look at it and go, well, how are these executives getting the car? It's unbelievable. He actually passed by Sam Antar. He's also a good guy. Sam Antar is all over the financials of these. Today it's Bill de Blasio. I can tell you he has the financials he uncovered on the New York City Police Department with the chief of department. It's crazy.
Yeah. He does great stuff on X. He's the Crazy Eddie guy. People from New York are going to remember those Crazy Eddie ads. Yeah. His prices were insane. But also, before we get too deep into the show, I want to remind people they can visit salgreco.com, read all about you there, follow you on social media, and most importantly, people can support your work. This is the way Sal earns his living, by bringing people incredibly specialized information about the NYPD and corruption in New York City, before you hear about it in the news. And when you do hear about it, Sal has all the details. So go over to salgreco.com, click on that support tab, and send Sal a bit of money here so we can keep the show going.
Yeah, the show actually. So I've been doing it on the Sal Greco show on my own channel. Soon I'll be doing it on the Finest Unfiltered channel, which then will be one umbrella, make things more simpler that you could catch John and Eric in the morning. And then, of course, there'll be Sal Greco in the afternoons. That's basically the upcoming programming you're going to get.
That's a great idea.
And now here is the article we're talking about. There it is. Confidential Rental and Leasing Office, a program that provides undercover vehicles for NYPD officers and detectives engaged in investigations.
That's why they were all black Mustangs. So they got some kind of deal going with Ford where they got all of these GT and
Lincoln Navigators.
Yeah, high trim cars.
Now, here's the thing that's not written in this. What happened to the black boxes of the car? What I'm talking about is the black box, which is not even discussed in these articles. That's the box they need to track your vehicle. GPS, you show up on a DOS light. Who took that box out? Where is that box? That's these vehicles. Secondarily, where are the red light summonses? They're passing red lights, and they're also picking up summonses. Where are those? Nobody's discussed this yet. And then we have the whole part about the, what's his name? Brussel being the CEO of Brooklyn South Investigation, who had apparently the Category 1 car, the Crowell car, and he's giving it to his underling, which, I mean, he can't even do that. And what are the investigations for? But a lot of executives have been rumored to be doing, this stuff, taking these cars. Another thing that came across today was they said, apparently, another allegation was the executives were asking for Lincoln Navigators, the Crowell vehicles, for their spouses, which is insane because the spouse can't drive the vehicle. And we also learned that there's an investigation on Anthony Miranda, the sheriff, which and on my own show, I get into a ruling against him. He had an unmarked car from the city that his son drove. And his video of his son, yes. So these guys have a habit of lending out their vehicles to family members who are not working for the city, don't work for the agency, and they just drive around and do what they want. Lights and sirens. I mean, it's just a free-for-all. Jason, this is the most epically corrupt administration ever. I don't think there's anything close to this. If you look at this, the scale of this, it's and all these, now you're pulling up all these articles here about illegal cannabis stores. There was a ruling by New York State Supreme Court Justice Marcel that literally states they violated everyone's Fourth Amendment rights when they basically commit a burglary. They come to your store warrantless to do a spot check, and then they detain you, the owner, take your property, take your cash, and you never see it again. Oh, by the way, all these cases were dismissed. They had no probable cause for any of this, had no warrant, and it was just a basic reach. What did you do with all this property? Now, inside this, what's not being reported, I reported myself, is that it's Kaz Dawdry, the Deputy Commissioner of Operations of the NYPD, and the now Chief of Department, John Schell. They're the ones involved in the raids. They were the ones that created a, cannabis raid squad, whatever you want to call it, via Padlock, CRT,
right?
That went with the sheriff to commit these, what we call them, burglaries on these people. And guess who filmed one of them? As you know, our favorite bootlicker was there for, yes. So this is your Fourth Amendment smashed to smithereens by Eric Adams' administration. And this is going to cost taxpayers millions of dollars. It's going to be pending in future litigation for years. There's already 5 stores. Because of the 5 stores in their litigation got this ruling yesterday or 2 days ago from the judge, will now lead to future litigation. Because what are you going to do? What's going to happen with this, Jason? People are going to say,
Yeah,
My
they're going to
rights were
sue.
violated too.
Right.
They came to my store and basically came in, browbeat people, handcuffed people, detained them illegally, took all their stuff, took their money, and closed up their store. Why? Why was this done? Because Eric Adams at his State of the City said, we've closed so many cannabis stores and done all these great things. He's pointing
Whoop. Sal?
all the legal drug dealer down, going after them like they're criminals. And the real drug dealers he's partying with. That's what's really happening here, Jason. It's sickening to even say it, but this is out in the open. It's right in your face, but nobody wants to say, I don't know. They let this guy off the hook all the time, Eric Adams. They don't ever question him or his cronies about this kind of behavior, tactics, the rulings against them, the litigation. It's nonstop, and it's costing taxpayers. They're going to be in litigation for years. That's the
Unbelievable.
article.
Yeah, and there's very little reporting on it in the mainstream news, right? You got to go to these independent sources and
To find out what's really going on.
yeah, it's like they're all in bed with Eric Adams. Boy, we can't even get to this. We got a lot of ads on there. So the judge rules the raids of the hemp stores by the NYC sheriff and state officials were improper. I mean, that was sort of obvious. And they stole the money, they stole the cannabis, and they're driving around in fancy Lincoln Navigators. Unbelievable. Now, so Sal, is your case with the NYPD, is that completely done, or it's still on appeal, right? You're still fighting
That's still at the part of discovery, which would be we have to schedule the depositions. Remember, we were very close to doing it, and then all of a sudden, my attorney gets a jury duty out of the blue. That knocked them out for 1 full month. It's very convenient. It was done the same week we were supposed to depose the former police commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell. But now there's going to be a lot to ask her in regards to all this police department corruption that is happening right underneath her as the police commissioner. This stuff occurred while she was a police commissioner. It started with her, continues with Eddie Caban, because she leaves. We don't understand really why. And now it continues to this day. With Tish, you think, for anyone who thinks they call it a red herring, Jessica Tish, essentially, all of this is a Band-Aid. What they're doing is, like, they had the vehicle pursuit thing today. They said, oh, well, this is a change. There's no real change in the vehicle pursuits. It's all word salad for, the people that are inquiring about this. Because in reality, the procedure's been the same since day one, that you're not supposed to do vehicle pursuits unless it's, an extenuating circumstances. It's all a judgment call, what you really think as a cop and a supervisor, if this pursuit is in the best interest of the city taxpayer. That it really depends. But they have her down as she's making moves and transfers. Jason, they're making transfers. What you're seeing them do is trying to cover down what they believe is about to happen. There's so many litigations and so many accusations that they have to do something to make it look like they're doing something. And unless this is made public, they don't do anything. They literally will not move on anything. So that's what's going on with the police department. Jessica Tish is a billionaire puppet. She is not the real police commissioner. It's always the guy we see in the background here, Eric Adams. That's the true police commissioner. He has to approve everything that anyone does. And some of the movements come from him directly. In fact, Kaz Daughtry has been the true police commissioner for a long time, up until recently when Jessica was announced. And I don't know if she takes care of, administrative duties and Kaz Daughtry takes care of all the other stuff, but that's what was told to me and through sources that is really going on in the police department. And here, I found my own post here going back to, that's scrutinizing the quality of life, which is the CRT team. So when I posted this thing on last night on X, I said the CEO of Patrol South, Brooklyn South Inspections, Mark Bussell, worked directly for now NYPD Chief of Department John Schell as Chief of Patrol and made CRTs, that's the unit we just discussed, investigations virtually go away. Allegedly, Mark had an unmarked department vehicle assigned to him and only drove the Crowlow to and from work. So that's the car we just discussed that you saw in the article. That's the fancy car that should never be driven, right? So the right hand to Bussell is this guy, Lieutenant Mohammed Nomani, who works underneath him in inspections, who works in the same unit, used the Category 2 vehicle assigned the Category 1 vehicle, which is, so Category 1 vehicle, for everyone who knows in the police department, would be in these units assigned to the commanding officer. The Category 2 vehicle could be anything. It could be the XO, the executive officer's car, or another unit, some special unit there. So I wrote here, that's the take-home vehicle, the Category 1 car. He was alleged to have been caught doing that already, meaning the lieutenant, taking a Category 1 car home. But that's not all. So Bussell's response to Nomani getting caught taking the Category 1 car home of the inspections was for him to give him the Category 1 car that he's supposed to have, Bussell, and he took the Crowlow vehicle because nobody's going to question him. He's the commanding officer of the unit, which, by the way, answers to his buddy John Shell and Kaz Daughtry. Who are they going to complain to? There's nowhere to complain. The complaints stop right there. So you see, Jason, the system is designed to be blockades, kind of like buffers all the way to the top, that nothing can get past all these buffers if need be. If you have a corruption case, if you have any kind of case, it gets stopped because all these lower levels are there to stop anything that could get all the way to the top. And if, God forbid, Jason, anything does make it to the top, Kaz Daughtry's in Eric Adams' ear saying, no, there's no investigation. What are you talking about? I got it.
It's unbelievable. So these guys are just, how do they make money from these cars? They're just having these incredible cars that they don't have to pay for, basically.
Yeah. It's all taxpayer funded. There's the post right there that I mentioned. And there's the two people on the side that have the, with the cars, with all this stuff that I'm mentioning. And it's truly despicable. Why aren't these guys under investigation?
Wow. So these guys making $245,000 plus they don't have to pay for a car. They're
taking home cars.
To pay for gas, right?
They're taking home cars that's supposed to take home.
Wow.
And the Crowlow car, remember, has no GPS. We don't know who ripped it out. Somebody rips out these things. It has no GPS, no black box, no data. So that means the only way to know about anything is a plate reader, which means it picks up red light summonses and summonses, meaning it's parked on a fire hydrant. Where's the records of this stuff? Nowhere to be found. Where are the records? Ask Commissioner Tish. Oh, she won't know because you got to ask Eric Adams really first.
Wow. Unbelievable. Now, you and I spoke about Tish in previous shows. You told me that she had been some kind of technology liaison or something like that before this.
Yeah. She was the head of like the intelligent, like technology bureau in the police department. She did that for a while. But again, the problem with that was she was the head of this, and that's how they came up with that cell phone that came out on the de Blasio, which was terrible. They had to change it. So there was a lot of hiccups with that. And then she left, and the person that took over this had their car taken recently. It was, I believe, Henderson was their name, the inspector. They were in charge of this bureau that he took over for her. And she was doing all these technology upgrades for the police department. But now she was the head of sanitation, which, look around New York City in the last 3 years, was that even a good job what sanitation was doing? Because remember, she's the head of it. And now she takes over a police department that's in disarray. And I can tell you, Jason, there was plenty of people that were offered this job that refused it. Many people I know of, I might release their names. I know exactly who they are. Were given, they were asked, do you want to, take over as police commissioner? And they flat out said no. So she took a job that essentially nobody wanted because she's a yes woman. Whatever you say, Eric, I just want the job title because she has political aspirations of her own. But
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Her failure right now not to modify people, not to have real investigations, well, it's ultimately going to be, that's going to be what she's remembered for. And that's essentially her political tombstone. Even if she wanted to have one, that's what you're going to remember. She was the most lenient person at a time when you needed somebody heavy-handed. And the people in the media that are backing her, you have to understand she's hired a lot of Ray Kelly's cronies. I've gotten into this in the past. Ray Kelly, probably the best out of all the police commissioners I worked for in my time, my 14 years. Is he the best police commissioner, though? There's a lot to be left to be desired. A lot of litigation right now and a lot of payouts that have happened under him as the police commissioner, numerous lawsuits, numerous violations. Did he keep the city safe? Yeah, you can say the numbers were pretty good underneath him, but at the same time, there'll be critics that'll point to litigation and how much money it cost the city underneath him. So the jury will always be out on Ray Kelly. And I don't think that we should go to the voices of the past to make the decisions that happen today and in the future, because clearly we want to move on from that era, because that's like 15, 20 years ago now when he even started, Ray Kelly. So why do we want to go back to that? That worked in that era for a slight time, and then a lot of people were complaining. There was a stop, question, and frisk. It was abused and all, so that is the legacy of Ray Kelly. I don't think we should be taking, points from him or any crony that he knows, because that's like saying we're going to replace the Eric Adams cronies that are gone for the Ray Kelly cronies. And it's Ray Kelly cronies that are pushing this. Tish is a good person behind the scenes, and she's doing great because they're advising her. And it's funny how Ray Kelly despises Eric Adams, but he's all for Jessica Tish and secretly has his cronies advising her. And you can tell by some of the moves she makes, because there's something going on right now. So when we get transfers in the New York City Police Department and personnel decisions.
Hang on a second, Sal. Let's stay on Ray Kelly for a second. See, I love it when you bring up this stuff that I don't know anything about. Maybe I can add something that you didn't know about. So first of all, we got to look into what he was doing with the World Trade Center bombing in 1993, because that had Bill Clinton all over it. And he was a candidate for FBI director. When he turned down the position, Louis Freeh was appointed. I have a feeling he might have known what was coming 8 years later, but he was the director of police under the United Nations mission in Haiti. Another thing that Bill Clinton was all over. And look, it says Bill Clinton extended diplomatic relations and all that. See, it's interesting to me that you're saying that he's pushing Jessica Tish, even though he doesn't like Eric Adams. I think there's always something going on beneath the surface that we don't necessarily know about. And I keep coming back to when you told me that Tish was this technology liaison, because when Orrin Levi first spotted me on the street, he had to be using some sort of technology. There's no way he just recognized me. And we know back in 2019 and 2020, there was this big dust up over the NYPD fingerprint database and the whole Clearview thing. So this is an article from 2019. And look, it's talking about Jessica Tish right here. Police became aware of the breach within hours. And according to Deputy Commissioner for Information Technology, Jessica Tish, contacted the department's Cyber Command and the Joint Terrorism Task Force. That's the FBI. So Ray Kelly and this lady, I think, are very much into joining the NYPD with the FBI technologically, so that they appear on the surface to be two separate things that maintain everybody's constitutional protections. But in actual fact, the NYPD live scan database and other technology like that allow the FBI to basically, come down on anybody they want at any time.
Well, you want to always keep this separate. You don't want to merge anything. Like JTTF was the only unit that's like a quasi federal unit, because you work with Homeland Security. But if you start merging things, that's where things really get, really cloudy and really, not so clear. Ray Kelly, though, like I said, he was a police commissioner in the early 90s. I actually stated that. In the early 90s on the Ray Kelly, what used to happen was, like I said, when there was transfers in the police department, they would go down by the finest message. So the finest message it's an official order, and it comes from like the chief of personnel and the chief of department, and they state what's going on, if anyone was suspended that day, if anyone was modified that day, if a retired member of service passed away or has a funeral, or transfers. or promotions coming up. It comes down as finest message. But in the early 90s, they weren't releasing this right away. They were withholding that information. They would come out with it days or weeks later or whatever it was. It's something that Ray Kelly did under Ray Kelly in the first stint as a police commissioner under Mayor Dinkins. Now they're rehashing this all over again. And these are some of the orders I'm talking about. This is kind of what it would look like. It's first they give you orders. These are orders for transfers, right? These are personnel orders, but the finest message should come down. This came down the other day as an order, and there's a bunch of people transferred, and they just released it all in one shot. That was something that Ray Kelly would do, but because of the 50A ruling, where now you have to put everything out right away, this is almost violating that rule. You need to know on the spot what's going on personnel-wise, because remember, the taxpayer is paying for all of this. So why are you withholding personnel? And I believe it's a tactic from the Ray Kelly. Now, who do you think is advising her? This didn't happen on the other police commissioners. It hasn't happened in a really long time. But there's the reason behind that is they want to hide certain things. I could break something to you right here that no one's even spoken about. Lieutenant Quatisha Epps, the woman that was much maligned because she had $400,000 and she was the most overtime, and she actually wasn't by the hours, but they say that she took all this money and they had suspended her. Okay. And if she was suspended under the chief of the department, who 2 days later resigns in disgrace and is now under state investigation and federal investigation, and was suspended himself after we continuously pointed that he should be suspended. Monday was the final day that she had to report because she was suspended. Now, in 30 days, if you're not suspended and you're not investigated, they don't bring charges and specifications on you, you're finished. Your suspension's over. Now, because she had put in her paperwork for retirement, she's technically now retired. So, where is the finest message stating this? That Lieutenant Epps has been restored to duty, and now her retirement has started. Because she originally had put in to retire before they ran to suspend her and browbeat her and tell her and make her into what was the thing that she was having sex and it was all consensual, all that. Remember that stuff?
Right, overtime for sex.
Her suspension was now 31 days ago. So technically, as of Tuesday morning, she no longer is under suspension. She should have been restored, given back everything, and allowed to retire the way she wanted. She's a whistleblower. She's not the person stealing money. It's Madry that told her to do X, Y, Z. Some of them were with threats. Some of them were with coercion, telling her, if you don't do this, this will happen, that'll happen. I mean, this guy that's what he used to do. So, basically
forcing her to take the money to make her appear complicit with whatever they're doing.
She has to do things in order for, you have to operate in a certain way or you're not allowed to, go forward in your career. So she is now restored technically. So where is the order showing this? And the police department hasn't released it. It's a finest message. Where is it? Nobody could find it. And I'll tell you why. They haven't released it because this is the tactics of the early 90s on the Ray Kelly. They only released the finest message when and they can't do this because that's how they got in trouble. And the 50A came out. And that's why they have that out, because you need to reveal the information, transfers, where the cops are, if they're being disciplined, whether people like it or not. Now I'm looking back. I used to think that was a bad thing. And now I'm looking at it and go, wait a minute. We can't even keep track of personnel because they're hiding things, doing illegal transfers because they don't even put it down in the finest message. That makes it official. So they're doing it again. They're not being held accountable. This is like a rogue police department. That's all I could say. It's like everyone, it's a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all. There's no rules. And guess what? Once again, New York City taxpayers are paying for this stuff. It's really, I don't know what to say, mind-boggling. It's confusing at times because if you're not part of the culture, you might say, what's he talking about? But if you break this down the way I'm explaining it to you, you're going to start to see it in focus that the biggest thing happening here is your tax dollars are being wasted. They're wasting it on themselves, on their nonsense, on their pet projects, and they don't care because Eric Adams uses corporation counsel as an ATM. He doesn't care. Who are you going to sue? The taxpayers are paid for, not me. I'm not responsible for any of this stuff. Neither are my cronies. That's how they, that's the act. That's what you seek, Jason. I mean, you tell me. That's what it looks like from the outside.
No, definitely. Definitely. So, but wait a minute. What's happening with Madry? He's the guy who is responsible for Epps basically having to leave, right?
Exactly. He's the one so there's all kinds of investigations on him. They went to his house. They now took the phones of other people that used to, work in his office because they want to, they're going to look at everybody and everything and what's going on. People that were high on this overtime list, people that were working in the office with him. His own brother got a visit from the feds. That's what I understand. Allegedly, they were there for a long time, right? His brother's a lieutenant that made over $300,000, man, in 1 year. And his brother works in transit, yet the brother is not modified or suspended. But weren't they just at his house? I mean, if the FBI shows up and raids your home, how are you still active duty, full duty status in New York City Police Department when I know cops that do far less for the minor infractions will be modified or suspended? Explain this to me. I can't understand it. And that's where you're seeing all the vitriol because it's not fair. The discipline system, not fair. The way the police department is handling this is definitely cover-ups going all over the place. Yeah. And they don't treat things equally or fairly. They just do whatever they want and protect their own. Whoever's in that club, whether it's the Consafrito crew or the Jeffrey Madry crew, whatever's going, or the Eric Adams crime family, if you're in that family, you get taken care of. It's very apparent because they treat two people completely separate all the time.
Wow. And so we're still waiting for these superseding indictments. We don't know what's happening with that. There's a lot going on. It's almost like, I don't know, the NYPD, sure, it's a big deal that they're wasting the tax dollars, but we also can't set aside the fact that they're so busy doing crime that they're not actually enforcing the law. The city is more dangerous than it's ever been in the 30 plus years that I've lived here. So, I mean, obviously, it's terrible that they're stealing money, but at least if they were being an effective police force, maybe we could kind of look the other way. It's terrible.
So you mean when they come out with those charts and say, well, crime is down. And you know why crime is down? We're excluding the pandemic year in 2022, which is Eric Adams' first year. And crime is at a record low in transit. Oh, so you're excluding 2 years. So then if I were to take Eli Manning's NFL career and just exclude 18 out of him and kept the 2 Super Bowl winning years, he's better than his brother, right? That's exactly what they're trying to tell you. And people actually fall for this. Back the blue. The NYPD is great. Eric Adams is the MAGA mayor. Forget that the guy is bamboozling you. I mean, really, New York City is full of low information voters. I'm sorry. It's very apparent. You have to stop being low information. I know somebody actually told me that they wanted to vote back in the day for George Bush because they thought he was funny. His voice reminded them of somebody, a cartoon character. So why would you vote for the guy? It's low information. Are you kidding me? What about the policies? Wow. And that's what I'm saying here. Here's the crime numbers.
Yeah, I mean, this is weekly, but look, we can look at the numbers and the statistics and all that, but the fact is, you just walk around in the city, it's more dangerous than ever. People riding bicycles all over the sidewalk, getting shot, stabbed, attacked in the subway. You see everything is locked up in stores. Stores are closing. They opened a Target over here on 23rd Street. If you want to buy Ben & Jerry's ice cream, you have to, push a button and wait for somebody to come over and unlock the thing. They're stealing everything out of the store.
Those numbers are complete fugazi. Okay. Sam Antar actually proves, in a shooting, if you have a shooting in New York City and the bullet actually doesn't hit anyone, they don't count that as a shooting. Did you know that one? He exposed this. Yeah. Wow. So if you miss the intended targets, it's not a shooting. It's, what is that then? We're just collecting rounds and calling it a collection? I don't know. But this is the kind of stuff that they pull. By the way, rapes. which won't be. So in his
Ooh,
giant
it's
chart,
up like
Eric
crazy.
Adams doesn't put rapes. He says sex assaults. No, 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 no.
Wow.
Rape is part of that. But he cuts that out because that's a really bad number because it looks like, your administration has issues with women and there's women that feel unsafe. So rape doesn't count anymore. And Eric puts out this chart, oh, crime is down. If you put rape in there, it actually like the numbers start to really increase. So
Ooh,
it's all smoke and mirrors, the entire administration. None of these numbers, the minute Sam Antar grabs these numbers, right away he proves that the whole thing is a charade, and he's
wow.
not including one thing and only including another, and that's all they ever do. And he does it based on their own stats. It's not
That's
Sam Antar
amazing.
pulling them out of the sky.
Hmm. That's amazing. And he's like an accountant or some kind of, right?
Yep.
This is all what he does. It's really astounding, I have to say, Sal. So, I mean, I don't know. There seemed to be some chatter maybe a week ago feeling like perhaps this superseding indictment was imminent, but no, nothing happened.
I understand. I keep hearing a rumor. It is imminent. I don't know if it's this week or next week, but they're very busy down there on
Hmm.
Pearl Street and Federal Plaza. The problem is the whole thing is spread very wide and very vast. If you look at it, picture like kind of like you see behind me, you see one of these awards, and it's not just this one award. It's all connected, and then it starts with another row, and then, because there's so many people involved and so many branches that it's a vast network, and you spread it out far and wide, it never ends because you're hearing about things that include different parts, different people. Some of the same people calling the shots, and now then there's other people that you don't even know about that are involved in something else that trickles back to the same people. So it's like you're really looking at a RICO case and a crime syndicate, and all the way around you, the criminals are the people running the place, and it's so apparent. And you can't just pull up an indictment on one person and say, okay, this is it. It's vast. And that's what they're trying to figure out. Because what are you going to say? We're going to pin it all on Eric Adams? Or what? We're going to pardon Eric Adams so that everyone else underneath him falls on the sword? I mean, there's so many ways of looking at it, but it's so vast. That is why they're not announcing anything, because they actually said the secret out loud that it's an ongoing investigation, meaning that whole Turkey thing, it's continuing. There's more and
Right.
more. So it never ends because there's so many other, avenues and people involved. So how big is it? We don't really know. You hear things trickling out, but it's like, you have the fraternal organizations, we have the vehicle scam, you have the nightclub shakedowns, you have the straw donor things. It's what else do we have? I mean, you have the pay for play, meaning they're doing overtime using federal dollars. Then they use what they wanted sex for overtime. It's just, where do you start and where does this
Well,
end?
it's literally like a Sopranos episode. And then I saw this, which was really super Sopranos. Eric Adams met with a Trump ally, the Nassau County executive, Bruce Blakeman. But the thing is, the meeting, there was look at this. The pictures, they're like meeting under the bridge or something. This is not the way the mayor usually meets people. He doesn't have a tie on. Somebody's taking kind of like spy photos of him here. What kind of meeting is this, Sal?
So if you read the article, the go-between here is there's a middleman, and that middleman is attached to none other than Frank Carone. This guy is the former chief of staff, Eric Adams, being investigated himself. He's involved in this corruption scandal. But who is he best of friends with? That would be Artie Aidala, who's also a very, very close friend of Eric Adams and prolific fundraiser also for the Democratic Party. He throws fundraisers with his law firm, and he's all mixed in with the Democrats. There isn't a conservative part about him. Trust me, everyone knows that in New York City. He is now representing Steve Bannon. So here's the catch, and I pulled this out, and this is all allegations, but it's actual theory, but it's an allegation also. A few weeks back, Eric Adams was going to be at the New York Young Republican Gala. It's been reported he was supposed to be a guest speaker there. He had a little
Whoa.
nameplate or something.
Wow.
He was supposed to be there, and the only reason he didn't go, which was on a Sunday, was that night. And it was Artie Idala himself who announces that Ingrid Lewis Martin, his client, former chief advisor to Eric Adams, is being investigated by the state and the feds herself, was an imminent indictment of her. So Eric Adams that night didn't show up to the New York Young Republican Gala, but Steve Bannon was there. And guess who else was there filming all of that? Your favorite bootlicker.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that odd? So the bootlicker was taping Steve Bannon. He put it up on his X, but they taped the interview, the speech. And in Steve Bannon's speech, he's speaking glowingly of Eric Adams and that he's a political persecution and all this other stuff. That, the sanctuary city thing, he said it. No, he didn't. I'm going to reiterate this one more time with him. He was pro-sanctuary city. He invited illegal immigrants to the city. He had buses waiting for them. He only started crying about it, right, when the money was running dry. No more money for your shelters, which means Tim Pearson, when he said, "Where's my crumbs?" was in regards to the shelter money. Also, Eric Adams wanted illegals to vote in local elections. Then he said that the official policy of New York City is for the borders to remain open. There is nothing MAGA about this guy. Nothing. There's no conservative bone in Eric Adams. The only bones he has are for himself and whatever could best fit him and help him in his future. So this gala, which is missing him, and Bannon's preaching all this stuff to everybody in there. Next thing you know, now you're seeing that all these other people in the Bannon world, the universe, his attached people, they're number one fighting with your friend there you mentioned last time, Elon Musk. And now they're attacking Elon Musk and being pro Eric Adams. This is a city that he's crushed Republicans. And I'll tell you how he's crushed them. So many local city workers were terminated under a mandate that the judges in the cases that they put out ordered the city to reinstate them with back pay and benefits because they violated their rights. Eric Adams is appealing those constantly, costing the city more money. You're losing people on the workforce. You would have had veterans, and now it's going to cost you more money to litigate that than to actually have them come back. And you need them because you can't hire anybody. Nobody wants these jobs. So Eric Adams hurt those people. Many of them were what? Trump supporters, and they voted for him not once, twice, but 3 times. That's Eric Adams. He's no MAGA bone about him, but that's not what you're going to hear out of certain, we'll say, Steve Bannon circle people. And then all of a sudden, guess who he picks as his new attorney for his state case? That, remember, it was Steve Bannon that was pre-pardoned for his Build the Wall fraud case that everybody was convicted in that case, Jason. Everyone went to jail. He got pre-pardoned, but that means that leaves you to get charged in a state case. That's what that means. So the strategy of this would be Eric Adams is just following the Steve Bannon strategy. Get pre-pardoned, right? Go beg, go do whatever you have to do because he did it and it worked for him. And here's the catch. The middleman, from what I'm being told, allegedly is this Boris Epstein, who is Trump's legal advisor, who, if you had any legal issue, you have to go to him for. And Boris Epstein has been reported in the New York Times that he was basically trying to ask the nominees for Trump's cabinet to give him some money, which means he got his caught with his hand in a cookie jar, which is a disbarment waiting to happen. By the way, he never had a case. I don't think these guys ever tried a case in his life. So he was trying to take money from people to become nominees in the cabinet so he could, put in a good word. This is like unethical as a lawyer. And that's the guy that would be the point man for Bannon, his camp, for Eric, back to Trump. Because there's no one else that's going to vouch for Eric Adams anywhere. But now you see that it's Bannon that has Idala as a lawyer. Also, there's the China connection. We have Winnie Greco, the Asian community. She's like entrenched with them, and she's involved with, some high people from China, apparently or allegedly. And who's Steve Bannon tied to? Miles Guo, another guy attached to China who's right now sitting incarcerated. I'd love to know what he knows about all this stuff. He's sitting incarcerated right now because he was convicted for crimes that, they actually mentioned Steve Bannon as a unindicted co-conspirator.
Right.
So the web is huge. The web,
it's also tangled, Sal, because you see, you're mentioning all these people. So Elon Musk, he's getting disparaged by Steve Bannon. And Bannon is somehow working with and promoting Eric Adams. Elon Musk's attorney, Alex Spiro, is representing Eric Adams. Why are all these guys so closely connected? And Miles Guo, the other day I was down there when they did that illegal lawfare sentencing of Trump. I went down to the courthouse and I was there in Collect Pond Park where the NYPD loves to do all kinds of weird operations down there, frequently involving Oren Levi and people that he knows. And there's this group of kind of like Chinese immigrants who seem very Miles Guo adjacent to me. And when I said something, they got all pissed off. There's this other guy. See, they were setting this up. And there's this guy who I've seen before who's kind of a social engineer who hangs out with Ian Carroll. This guy, not this guy, Santa Claus is all right by me. But we have this other guy who's kind of dressed up like Antifa. I think that the NYPD is, you said that Shell wants them to control the narrative. And correct. I do believe that that means that they're controlling not just one person at a protest. They want to control everybody at the protest. That's why they get pissed off when I show up, because I'm showing everybody people like this guy. I don't know if you got to see this segment. Let me play this for you a second.
I didn't see this.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
How you doing? I've seen you here in the park before, haven't I?
Yeah.
You don't want to take the mask off?
No.
Don't you think it's deceptive to appear in public with a mask?
No,
what are all these?
necessarily.
You always seem to have weird symbols on your jacket.
This guy's Antifa.
Are you the guy that's been talking to Ian Carroll? I think you are.
Who's that?
Yeah, that's you.
What's up?
That was you. So what do you? Yeah. What do you think of that, Sal? When you're interrogating a suspect and you ask them, "Do you know Ian Carroll?" and right away they say, "No, who's that?" Isn't that a little suspicious?
I would say unless you know who it is. I mean, why is he covering his face? I mean, this whole I thought there was a law they put in that you can't cover your face, but if he does this all the time, I don't know who he is. I've never seen him in my life. I mean, this could be anyone at this point.
Well,
I'm not for this look only because the mask thing, they used everything that happened back under the pandemic. You cover your face and you commit a crime you don't know, right? Because it's going to be hard. You got to look. So I'm not for this look because this looks very shady, shady to me.
Exactly.
And he's walking away. He walks away from you.
And as you pointed out, it used to be kind of forever that unless it's Halloween, it's kind of against the law to wear a mask. And the thing that was so interesting about that masked marauder is that I had seen him previously. Let's see, where had I seen that guy? Hanging out with our buddy, Oren Levi. And
that guy is like entrenched with anything. It's just that guy.
Here he is. Here, let's look at this.
What are your patches mean? Huh?
Trolling.
You're trolling?
Yeah.
Are they Velcro or are they stitch on?
Stitched on.
So it's the same patch right there.
Yeah.
And you see Oren Levi in the background there on his cell phone?
I see Oren Levi right next to him.
There he is. So who is this guy? What's he doing in the park? He's interviewed later by Ian Carroll, I think it's the same guy. Here is the guy.
I'm Ian Carroll, if you don't know. And Jules has a hell of a story that I have
Quang.
a million questions about. So Jules, thanks for sitting down with me.
Yeah,
I really
thanks for having me. Yeah.
And I assume most people that are watching this don't know anything about you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give us like the elevator pitch of
similar build, right?
This documentary that you've been working
Similar
on filming
build.
for the last 4 years.
Again, this is going to be hard to prove, though.
It's hard to prove. I'm not saying this is proof. I'm just saying I suspect this guy is up to something. And
because
the other day,
you saw him this time. He had glasses on top of so you can't even. You can, what I mean. I can't even see this part because he's.
But I just got the vibe that this is him. And when I mentioned Ian Carroll right away, he said, "Oh no, who's that?" Ian is up to his own set of suspicious stuff. This guy's Chinese, back to, that doesn't matter. He can be Chinese, but I'm saying there's this sort of gang of Chinese people that seem connected to Miles Guo that are down there constantly protesting. You're telling us about how Eric Adams and Steve Bannon are buddies. Is this some Chinese connection into the NYPD to get protesters and social engineers and different people doing stuff? I don't know.
Well, I could tell you one thing. Winnie Greco for sure has hooks because she was the liaison for Eric to China and all. I mean, she's been there for over 10 years with Eric Adams, and she had her own. She doesn't even need that money. She has her own businesses to work. I mean, the only reason to work for him is to have some kind of political attachment for some reason to Eric Adams. She would be the liaison for Eric Adams for all of that stuff, and we know she had one guy embedded underneath Eddie Caban. Remember that story? So and she lived in the Bronx too. I mean, that
she
just
doesn't
so
look Italian to me.
Yeah, well, that's my last name, unfortunately. I have no relations to this woman, but this woman is mysterious and with everything that has been going on with Eric Adams. But she is she's the hook back to China and in the Asian communities to all these shady, what do you want to call them, donors, all this stuff is surrounding her. And then we know with Bannon, we have Miles Guo, that connection back to him. And then you have other people that Bannon's had around him. And this Boris Epstein guy, nobody knew him. He came up through Steve Bannon's war room. That's where everybody saw him every day. He was on that show every single day. That's how he caught Trump's attention. Who knew this guy? Nobody saw him until he was on Steve Bannon's show all the time. So that's how he came to prominence. And he's clearly close to him. That is the connection. There is no other. Who else in Trump world would even speak to Eric Adams or any of his people? And remember, what is Eric Adams like? He's a highly conflicted individual who surrounds himself with corruptible people. Yet again, we have somebody who's, again, the New York Times reported that was doing what? Asking for money to get their nominations through to Trump, or that connection with Trump to get nominated for something. So that shows you already, well, ding, ding, ding. Here's the guy I would call because he's his legal advisor. And does he need money for something? This all makes sense. You could say it's a theory. You could say I'm not the one who even came up with this, to be honest. It's all out there as an allegation, but considering my accolades behind me, there's probably going to be some truth to what I'm saying here. And all I'm saying is you should take a closer look because it's from my perspective, this stinks to high heaven because it came out of nowhere. What the connection is to Bannon back to why do you even now you're hiring his attorney? It happened so suddenly.
Very weird. Yeah.
Very weird. Remember, Bannon's Mr. MAGA. Mr. We're going to deport everybody. Eric was Mr. Open Borders.
Is it just wrestling? Is it just WWE where they're the actors playing both sides of the coin? Is that what it is?
I used to think that, but in reality, with politics, it's just show me the money. That's what it's really all about. And Eric said that day one when he was on the Senate floor in New York State. Show me the money. That's what he said.
But if you think about it, Sal,
that's what it's all about.
Let's examine this for a second. Okay, show me the money. So that means they're all into doing just whatever gets them money. And that kind of does support this theory that it's world wrestling where both sides are staged. And that trickles down to the park, right? They control that guy with the patches and the face mask. They control the protest and the counter protest. So when I show up and start asking questions and figuring out what's going on, they want Jason the hell out of there right away. So that's why Orrin Levi is trying to start a fight with me so that the legitimate NYPD officers can come and grab me for assault. The problem that he has is I understand the law in New York. So when he lunges at me and I back up, the officers see me retreating. They can't arrest me for assault.
Yeah, I don't know why he's got it out for you. He has it out for a few people. But the thing is he didn't have the police at his beckoning. Now he does. It's very strange because, I was a cop. I would never pay attention to any journalist or alleged journalist. I don't even say that about him. Right. I wouldn't pay attention to somebody saying, come here. Like, who are you? You just showed up yesterday. You were protesting against cops. You hated them. He was screaming obscenities at them. He was marching with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Now you're
Right.
pro-police overnight. Like, and not only that, you're pro-Eric Adams. And he was pro-Trump when he was against Trump. It just gets crazier with that guy. But I don't know what his obsession is with you. You seem to always clash or run into him. And then he wants to pick a fight with you. I saw you another time. I believe you were in the same park. And he was saying, hit me or something. I saw that. I remember that incident too.
No, that's
I
the thing.
remember.
He's always trying to provoke a fight, because before I realized that he was, embedded with or working for the police or whatever, I just thought he was some bozo on the street. And the notion of, throwing a swing at him, who wouldn't want to do that? But the point is, that's just it. He knows. I can tell by looking at the videos, when he's provoking me, he's always kind of nervously looking to where the cops are, because he's also simultaneously afraid that I might punch him in the face and he could get hurt. So he's looking for the cops to try to pinch me.
Exactly. This way
You
can
ask
say
why
you're a
he's
criminal.
interested in me. You know what it is, Sal? I think that through the JTTF and people like Ray Kelly, the NYPD becomes a finger on the hand of the FBI. They can direct the NYPD or certain elements of it, the critical response group or the JTTF or certain assets. The community response group was also having some kind of, is that the CRT, the community response group, or the critical response group?
Yes. Critical response team.
Okay. But there's a community thing also, right? Some sort of community.
There was. He used to have like community officers. They go neighborhood
Community affairs.
Yeah.
That's what it
community
is.
affairs. Yeah, but they had the NCOs, which NCOs are neighborhood community officers.
See,
They're not part of CRT,
but they wear this distinct kind of royal blue color.
Yeah, well,
and that sort of matches the color of the day that we've seen Oren Levi wearing. I wonder if he's not.
He wears, like I pointed that out to you. He was wearing a color that day. If you look at the cop and him, that definitely is odd that he would wear the color of the day. He could now.
Right.
That's not saying that he didn't hear it or he knows about it, because I don't know why cops would discuss any business with that guy, but they can and say, "Oh, today's color of the day is whatever," and he wears it on his own with nobody saying anything, because he kind of looks like, at times he wants to be in the crowd. As I saw him challenge you in that park for no reason out of the blue, and he had his camera in your face. And here's another Concha Frito guy. This guy Mark Stewart, another corrupt guy, another crony of Eric Adams.
So he's the head of community affairs.
Yeah, but there's someone underneath him that just recently ran for the door. His name was Max Talentino. He was a deputy chief, and that guy was in community affairs. They moved him out because he was shipping bulletproof vests overseas for Eddie Caban and Dennis Rodriguez, the Concha Frito crew, coming together with that one. And there's no answers to why, because the vests were actually the recruits. They're not even police officers yet. Were videoed taking these things and doing all these things with the vests for them. That you could sell guns to other police departments or use stuff, but not bulletproof vests. Like, where did that come from? And why are they going overseas? And this video I have is now vanished off social media, by the way. No one could find it. It's not on the Spanish channel for NYPD. It's not on the NYPD channel. I don't know why they took it down. And then he's also been alleged in the New York Post. There's a big argument between him and the other chief, Victoria Perry, who's longstanding in Community Affairs Bureau, to be steering funds to Concha Frito, having the parties there that were all paid by who, we don't know. So that was a whole nother thing. And Talentino and Perry, who come from Community Affairs with Stewart on top, are all entrenched in that stuff. So like I said, it's a web. You look around and go, oh my God, who's not in this thing? That's basically what this comes down to.
Yeah.
Jason, who's really not in this?
Well, exactly. And, you've previously spoken about Serpico. Everybody knows that police corruption, and corruption of anything, has existed forever. I just wonder if it hasn't, grown to such an extent. And then, idiots like Eric Adams have seen, maybe Ray Kelly was an expert at corruption and just was good at keeping lid on it. And these guys have just blown it out to such an extent that, they can't hide it anymore. I mean, this is something that I've spoken about a lot, is that in 1980, special agent from the FBI New York field office and a New York City Police Department official met for lunch. They don't tell us who those two were, but they met for lunch to discuss how to combine their expertise to track down terrorist organizations, and they formed this joint terrorism task force, which is initially just 4 NYPD detectives and 4 special agents from the FBI. But today, it has grown to a giant network, approximately 4,000 members, 500 state and local agencies, 55 federal agencies, working together with SWAT teams, local police departments. This is totally unconstitutional. Not to mention the FBI has extended its reach to international operations. They created this NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. That's a very strange thing that the FBI would be doing anything in Ukraine. This whole, the difference between the CIA and the FBI, it's been blurred. We're supposed to have local law enforcement separate from federal law enforcement so that we have checks and balances and we don't get this, totalitarian police state, which we now seem to be living in.
Unfortunately, you could try to connect all the dots, but there's so many. And I remember this unit was impossible to get into, by the way, because whoever's in JTTF, they're there, and it's almost like lifetime. Unless they retire, nobody leaves because it's a really good gig. I know that they check things for federal cases, stuff like that, but they're hardly used in the street for any kind of real work or police work because they're doing their own thing with the New York office or FBI.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a unit that
basically become the FBI. They basically co-opt the NYPD. This is a very dangerous thing, the JTTF. Wow. I mean, it's amazing, Sal. You and I, the time goes so quickly because we're speaking about so much incredibly interesting stuff. Definitely going to have you back, but I want to make sure that people know they can reach you on X at the Sal Greco. And of course, they can visit salgreco.com. That's the best way to support Sal directly. Just tap on this support tab and you can send Sal a payment of your choice. We got to get you onto Subscribestar or something like that and start doing some deep dive sponsor exclusive shows. It's always interesting, the conversations that we have, Sal. Anything you want to discuss before we close out the show?
Yeah, so I'll be on. I have my own episode out today. You can go on the Sal Greco Show channel on YouTube or Rumble, and you can watch it or any major podcast streaming platforms. But I will also be doing right here the New York Finest Unfiltered podcast. That channel will be having my shows now. Moving forward, you'll see a lot of the shows on their channel. So it's like a network we're building with Finest Unfiltered. And you'll see some, forms of videos on my channel as well. But the actual episodes would be on the New York's Finest Retired Unfiltered, because we built the network, John McCarr, Eric Dimon, and Marlon Bethel and myself. And we're looking to bring in also other, former retired law enforcement and bring in other stories because, Jason, this corruption stuff is all over the country. I was talking to someone just the other day. I had my latest episode with Marlon Marachi, who's the IA Guy podcast. He's from Los Angeles. He used to do internal investigations, and he even said that some of that stuff is predetermined, and it's crazy. It's like, you got to be in a good old boys club or whatever to get around them, because if you're not, you're going to get destroyed. And it's almost like a setup, you know what I mean? It's like they're setting you up. When you're a cop.
When you're a cop, imagine you're a civilian who gets on the wrong side of the cops. Now, I'm pretty sure I saw a recent interview you did with Marlon. Was he the guy he's another person? There he is. He's another guy who got kicked out for not wanting the experimental vaccine, which I agree with.
That's Marlon Bethel. This one, everybody was talking about because he exposed he has analytics, and he's the analytic guy on the team. He does analytics and stats. He knows a lot of stuff. He puts a lot of stuff together, and he's part of the Finest Unfiltered family. So I don't know if he wants to do a show, himself, or just stay as doing like his own thing with stats and analytics. But being on this channel, you will be seeing Marlon Bethel, who was a 16-year veteran who was literally taken off the job without ever having an explanation. He wasn't given any due process. He wasn't charged with anything. They just said, you're fired, and that was it. That's literally, and the unions abandoned him for no reason. This is just telling you, if you're not part of the system, you're cooked. You're cooked. Yeah. And we're out there exposing it one way or the other. Now we're getting political candidates on. We're getting other people to talk and have interviews so that everybody gets their story out, and we spread information like we do here with Jason, because low information people, if they get informed, become informed people, and you make an informative decision. Just don't check a box. This guy shops at the same store. Or like I said, someone told me they liked the way George Bush sounded because he sounded like a cartoon character. Now, you can't vote for a guy for that's insane, but that's what you have out there. You cannot do that. Otherwise, you'll get the crime syndicate that you see in New York City today. It's going to cost millions for decades to come. For decades to come, you'll be paying for this stuff. As bad as the Ray Kelly stuff was, and there's a lot of lawsuits still with it, wait till you see the Eric Adams years. Wait.
Unbelievable. Sal, it's been great speaking with you as always. I want to also let people know that they can support Crowdsource the Truth by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com, or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see everybody later with Charles Ortel. And thanks again, Sal. Incredible information.